Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Real Talk Recreation Therapy for season two. We're really excited that we're able to continue this podcast and excited for everyone that's listening and joining in. So welcome back. We're excited to get this going.
Oh, yeah. We have a whole season of new episodes, a lot of interviews with different professionals in the field of recreation therapy and field adjacent. But we wanted to take some time to just give you some updates about us and where we're at in the world since we have moved around quite a bit since last season.
I know in our original intro episode, we were like, we're both in Hawaii. We're not in Hawaii anymore. And I think we probably alluded to this as we were filming season one because we were in the process of moving during that. But Jana, I'm now living in Singapore and doing volunteer work, recreation therapy, because it's not, an actual specific field here. So working with military families, leading recreation therapy activities, working with community people, just kind of volunteering with the populations that we work with, and being a new mom and learning all of that stuff. So that's where I'm at. And what about you, Carol?
I am currently living in the beautiful state of New Jersey, and I am working in Pennsylvania in inpatient psych as a recreational therapist. So, a new role for me, a new population that I haven't worked with before, but so far it's going great, and I'm really enjoying learning a bit more about working with this population. So, in future episodes, I hope to share some of the experiences that I've got and some of the things that I've learned. We'll get there.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So that's where we are. Yeah, like Carol said, we have a full season of really exciting episodes. So stick with us. And as always, if you're looking for our show notes, realtalkrecreationtherapy.com is our evolving project where we have our podcast episodes and our show notes, trying to be organized for you guys. So if you're looking for the research to share with your teams, or just looking for it for yourself, or looking for some of the equipment or adaptations we share, go to realtalkrecreationtherapy.com and you can find us there. All right, let's get on with the show. Hey everyone, I'm Jana.
And I'm Carol.
And this is the Real Talk Recreation Therapy Podcast.
On this podcast, we talk about real experiences and real research that back up the use of recreation therapy as a method of treatment for a variety of populations.
We try to keep it real as we address concerns and successes that we and other recreation therapists have had as we all navigate this awesome career field.
We don't have it all figured out, but one thing we know for sure is everything gets a lot easier when you can talk it out with a friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Recreation Therapy. Carol and I are really excited today to talk with you about continuing education and how to recertify as a recreation therapist. And we brought on the biggest expert I know on this topic. Your name comes up all the time, Danny, when we're looking at, like, if you just Google CEUs, your name is the one. So we're interviewing today Danny Pettry to talk to us about CEUs and recertifying as a recreation therapist, and also what you offer on your website, Rec Therapy today. So thank you so much for joining us, Danny.
Thanks to you, Jana and Carol, for having me on the program.
We're super excited to hear more about what you do and offer to recreation therapists. So to start off, let's just have you give us kind of a bio on yourself. How did you get into recreation therapy and how you got involved in CEUs?
In the late 90s, my parents wanted me to major in nursing. I was doing some volunteer work to be accepted into a nursing degree program. Of course, that's where I discovered rec therapy. And since then, my heart and passion's been that focus area. There was a room in the back where it was for a rehabilitation hospital, and they did yoga and gardening in wheelchairs and socialization and cognitive activities and relaxation. And I knew this is what I need to be doing with my life, is helping people in this area. So since then, I've been a rec therapist.
I love it. I love how so many rec therapists seem to kind of just stumble upon the profession and realize this really works. So our first question for you, guys, we know how you got into rec therapy, but how did you get into making CEUs for recreational therapists? Where did that kind of come in your career?
It was a mix of several different things that kind of all came in together. I had read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and he discussed having specialized knowledge and training, and that book kind of inspired me. I had also completed my master's degree in recreation therapy from Indiana University through their distant education program. That kind of inspired me to create some kind of a distant education program. So those are two of the big areas that just kind of came to my mind. Charlie Dixon, who operated the Therapeutic Recreation Directory online, had suggested for me to find something that his website wasn't really offering, and to provide that. His site didn't really have any online CEU programs at the time, and those kind of three elements came together, and I just created the program.
That's really awesome. I'm very impressed that you're able to work on that because you're also working as a recreation therapist, right? You're still practicing?
Yes, I work full time. I'm in my 21st year working at our psychiatric residential treatment facility, and I provide services for children and teens and their families. The major diagnosis is some type of trauma, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, other severe things that it's required the children to end up in residential treatment.
Wow, that's amazing. 21 years. You must be like the guy that knows everything over there.
I still have a lot of learning to go.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that it's a huge benefit to those children that you're working with.
Yes.
So even though we all know what the requirements are for NCTRC for continuing education, I was wondering if you could just kind of recap for the people listening about what the continuing education requirements are for CTRSs by NCTRC.
My first disclosure is always contact NCTRC for official information. Based on my experience being a CTRS for many years, the basic requirement is earning 50 clock hours of continuing education within the 5-year recertification period.
Yeah, so it's just 50, which isn't too bad. And then I believe it's 480 hours of practicing or volunteering or being involved in some way, right, with recreation therapy populations. So it doesn't seem like a ton when you're like, okay, 5 years to get 50, but then you're in your 5th year and you haven't gotten any, and you're like, oh no, what do we do? So that is kind of the where the online stuff can really come in handy, I'm sure. How does a CTRS prove to NCTRC that they have all of their CEUs? What do you walk us through, either from your experience or from teaching people about this?
They have a process where they audit every so many people who submit for recertification. I'm one of those lucky people who seem to get audited every year, every recertification cycle. And it's real simple. If you receive an audit, you just upload the certificates to show that you've earned your continuing education and some kind of proof that you've completed your 480 hours work. If you work full time, of course, those hours add up real fast within the first few months. Those are the two requirements. And I typically have someone in our HR department write a letter to acknowledge that I've at least completed that many hours over the 5 years.
I was also audited this year for my first recertification cycle. It's kind of exciting. But yeah, I was audited and it was pretty straightforward. I think the important thing for people listening to remember is that whether you're doing an online CEU or going to a conference is to make sure that you have all of your certificates. Because if you do get audited and you don't have the certificates to prove that you got the continuing education unit, then you're going to be in trouble.
It can be difficult, going back to all those conferences and asking for that. Best to save them.
Yeah. And they've made it a lot easier now with online classes and having online certificates. All I did was file them away in a little folder in my computer and make sure that it was backed up so that I could easily upload them to the NCTRC website when I was audited. Yeah. On the topic of CEUs, do you need to get CEUs in a specific area, like covering a specific topic? What are the requirements for that? What does NCTRC require?
Currently, they require the courses, the trainings to be within the job TR knowledge task areas. As long as the course follows one of those, it's going to be good. Of course, as always, contact NCTRC for official information. If it's a course on something just like activity based, such as, just painting or something like that, they're not going to accept that. It really needs to be something within the assessing, providing services, writing evaluations, within those kind of areas, knowledge on different populations and their needs.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point to bring up, that learning a skill, getting certified as an artist or something isn't, although it is very helpful as a recreation therapist to do that, it's not one of those task areas that will count for NCTRC.
Yes, I was listening to your previous episode on yoga therapy, and there's a difference between yoga and yoga therapy. And if you take a course on yoga, they're not going to accept that alone. Really looking for the benefits, goal planned for certain populations, something along those lines would be appropriate.
And we can link the task areas in our show notes. So if you're listening and you're like, I don't know what that is, that's okay. We will link that for you and link you to NCTRC's website to show you where those are. But the way I think of it is kind of categorizing what my classes were in school, right? There's like learning the assessments, the modalities, API process, and then you've got therapeutic theories and things like that. Anatomy courses perhaps would be included. But yeah, we'll link to those. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, I'm not sure, then we got you.
I also wanted to discuss that NCTRC offers the specialization, and there are several areas. People can specialize either in pediatrics, community, physical health, and rehab. I have the behavioral health certification, and it requires 75 hours of continuing education in the 5-year period. And with the specializations, all 75 hours must be in that specialization area.
Okay.
Oh, that's really great. That is, I think, something new since I graduated, but I remember them talking about that being a thing. So, and really helping recreation therapists kind of zero in, specialize on a certain topic. So 75 hours required for if you have that specialization.
When you get that specialization, can you only opt into it at your 5-year recertification window, or is that something that you could designate at any point during your cycle?
Based on my knowledge, you can sign up for that anytime. I'm fortunate mine just falls on the same recertification period, so it's really nice to just do that all in one.
Yeah. So for those more seasoned rec therapists that have a little bit more experience under their belt, this might be something to look into, just to kind of prove your specialization and kind of a nice thing on your resume, and just show that rec therapists really do specialize in different populations.
When you got this specialization, did you just sign up and say, hey, I've been working in mental health, like I need this, or did you have to take specific courses so that you are specifically specialized in it?
People can just go to the NCTRC website and sign up for whichever specialization they want, and then, just earn the continuing education to meet that requirement.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's more of a voluntary, personal choice that people can have.
Very cool. So this is kind of getting into like more you and what you do on your website. So kind of what is your personal philosophy when it comes to CEUs? I know it can be a pain. Recreation therapists, none of us like paperwork, and this kind of feel very paperworky. So from your perspective, why do you think it's an important part of the recertification process? And when you're making these CEUs, creating them, what makes it a quality CEU? Or when you're taking them, what makes it a quality CEU?
I would describe the process as like upgrading a computer. Every so many years, technology changes. We could compare it to physicians and imagine if a physician completed their medical school training in the 1980s or even the 1990s, and that was the last time they ever received any training, and they're still operating today in 2023 based on what was best practices then. There's a lot of research and studies proving new things are effective. So it's almost like upgrading your computer, upgrading your knowledge and skills just to stay relevant and with the most recent evidence-based research practice.
Yeah, for sure. I like the analogy. My computer right now is telling me I need to update and it's going to start slowing down. So it's a good analogy for where I'm at right now.
You probably don't want to have a rotary dial phone when we're using Zoom.
No, yeah. Yeah, all of that is very good for rec therapists to stay current with their knowledge and just the healthcare field in general. So what would you say, having made CEUs, what would you say makes for a quality CEU?
The course or the training must have clear learning objectives and goals. For example, by the end of this training course, the participant will learn or gain these kind of knowledge areas. So definitely goal-oriented. It's a lot like the API process.
Makes sense, right?
And the training is the intervention, and then the outcomes. The course should definitely be grounded in, based on research that proves that this is effective. There's also the international accreditors for continuing education and training. It's IACET, and they provide guidelines which NCTRC currently uses for measuring CEUs. So those are really the big things: clear objectives, evidence-based research, meeting all the requirements. For example, the requirements would be, the course is a 60-minute course would count as an hour, that it, doing 45 minutes or 15 minutes, just kind of those ethical principles.
Great. Yeah, I would agree. If it's not based in research, then what are we doing? Like, you don't even know if it's you could be learning something that is just someone's opinion, and it might be a nice opinion, but research is why we are designated as therapists versus just activity people, right?
Yes. Expert opinion is one type of example, but it's often not the highest. If it's based on research that has been shown to be effective, that's really what's the focus these days.
That's great. So how can a CTRS looking for those, how can they find good, reputable CEUs other than, so if you're listening and you're wondering about this in general and you don't know, a lot of places throughout America will have conferences, and you can go to the conference and meet with a bunch of other recreation therapists, and all of those will be, certified CEUs. You can learn about, like, take different classes, 2 or 3 day thing going on. But other than conferences, what are some other places that CTRSs can find good CEUs?
The first place I would recommend is the American Therapeutic Recreation Association. Of course, as you said, they have conferences, and then they have state branches across the United States. Beyond their conferences, they offer a webinar series, a book club. People can earn credits by reading their newsletter. They have a quiz at the end that you can turn in. People can also earn CEUs for training interns. If you have an intern in your facility, it's limited to how many hours a person can earn for that. So yes, definitely ATRA. One neat thing about NCTRC is they don't require the course to be pre-approved. A person may be working in physical health and rehab, that they could attend a conference by maybe the Physical Therapy Association or Speech Therapy Association or Occupational Therapy Association and still get continuing education credit, pending that it meets the TR knowledge areas. If it has to do with, certain patient areas and needs. Of course, I give the disclaimer several times to always contact NCTRC for official information. I'm just speaking based on being a CTRS myself and earning continuing education.
Those are all really great. And ATRA is a great resource that I think it's not just, the community, it's the education that is included in that. So that's really great. And of course, your own website, Rec Therapy Today, has continuing education units, right? That's the main purpose of your website. Can you tell us kind of more about Rec Therapy Today, what it offers, and the resources available?
Yes, you've got it. It's really a continuing education program for recreation therapists. What makes Rec Therapy Today different from other associations is that we're just an online continuing education program. We've had a few mini conferences, but really we're just sticking to online training. We've had 15,000 people, not all of them are rec therapists, complete one of our courses since we started. Our business is 15 years old now. We offer a variety of different courses. We have some free one-day teleconferences where people can attend, watch a webinar. We offer the opportunity to watch a replay of these webinars. We offer special PDF reports and guides for people to read. So we offer a few options, but yeah, the program is online continuing education. So rec therapists can earn their CEUs really from the comfort and convenience of their own home or office.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's really nice to like the dashboard. So you get your credit and you go in and you'll have like your course on the side so you can click into it. You don't have to sit there for 2 hours or 5 hours. If you got to go do something, you can click out of it and then come back to it and it'll pick up where you left off. So I found that really convenient when I was doing one of your CEUs.
Well, my programs evolved over time. When I first started, the internet really was not as strong as it is today. I started with a MySpace for rec therapists maybe in 2003, and my first website it wasn't very beautiful, if I could put it that way. And in the beginning, my courses were based on reading a book. We'd mail a book to people and read it and take an online quiz, and everything was manual for me. I had to look at every single one and mail out a certificate. And with technology, now they have all these resources where you can upload videos, and it's really changed.
Yes,
I do,
we're learning how to build a website right now, and I can very much relate to it's not pretty, it's just maybe a little functional. So
Yeah.
I want to share, the same process of like updating the website is a lot like continuing education that, we upgrade and upload new knowledge and skills. And my website is the same way, it's like in 5 or 10 years from now, who knows what might be going on, but it's staying relevant, staying updated. Some people would see my old website and they'd think, man, this is from the 90s. It looked like
yes.
it looked like that. And I just didn't have the knowledge or skills to create a website either. It's one of those things that I kind of learned on my own path as I went along, just teaching myself. I don't have a degree in technology.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I could talk to you all day about that. I feel very so many API things are relatable when we're doing this, like flow. Like I'm like right in between the anxiety and the just like trying to find the sweet spot in learning how to put things on a website. So check out rectherapytoday.com if you're looking for CEUs, and you can check out realtalkrecreationtherapy.com if you want to see recreation therapists learning to build a website for you.
I will say I really do appreciate the online CEUs because when I was a rec therapist living in Hawaii, there's maybe 20, that's probably generous, rec therapists in Hawaii. And there weren't really any conferences happening there for us. So it was nice to be able to complete those continuing education hours remotely. Just because I didn't have the resources to fly to the mainland to go to a conference.
Some of my first students, customers in my program were in different countries when I started with a woman, and her husband was in the military and she was in Germany, and she didn't know how she was going to get her continuing education living over there. So my program was like a perfect timing for her. I don't want to undermine the importance of conferences. Of course, it's very important to interact and you just gain more from those things. I attend a lot of the ATRA conferences and state branches, so I'm not being a hypocrite saying only do this type of program, but kind of distinguishes my program from ACTRA's that we're just a self-study program, often for people who aren't able to make it to a conference.
Yeah, very helpful for someone like me living in Singapore. Very, very helpful to have those online options. We really appreciate it. You talked about how like CEUs don't have to be pre-approved by NCTRC, but I think it's a thing on your website, right? It's a feature that you have all of your CEUs pre-approved by NCTRC. Is that correct?
For the most part, most of them are. When I have free conferences, I don't submit to get those one-day teleconferences pre-approved because it is free. However, I'll take the recordings, and if I decide to put them in our user area, Then I'll submit that to NCTRC, the outline, to get those courses approved. So yeah, for the majority of courses they're approved. And based on my experience providing the service for 15 years, I've never had any courses not accepted or approved. The pre-approval really gives people just kind of one more assurance. Another tip, of course, contact NCTRC for official information is if a person does complete a training from something outside of the profession, a person can also submit those courses in advance to see if they would be approved before they reach that deadline. So that's just a nice thing to know that you can do. A person can do that.
Yeah, for sure. So when you submit your CEUs to be verified or pre-approved, what does that process look like on your end? Do you just like create the course and say, here, send the email to NCTRC? Do they check for specific things? Do you fill out a form? What does that look like for you?
Yes, they have an application form, and for each individual course needs a session topic, it needs at least 3 learning objectives, make sure it falls in the TR knowledge area, make sure it meets the measurements for a training session. A webinar, if it's 1 hour, that's pretty easy. 1 hour is 1 clock hour. It's tricky when you have written material. There's certain guidelines to see how long an estimated length of time for those types of trainings.
Very cool.
So are there any upcoming CEU courses that you have that you'd like to promote, let people know about?
Why, yes, there is. For Rec Therapy Month, we're offering a 1-day CEU workshop. It's going to be on Saturday, the 25th. It's Eastern time, and we're going to have at least 5 speakers. This conference is completely free to anyone who wants to attend, and it's really nice with that. If they attend, the technology is able to show if a person was in there for the full hour or at least 50 minutes of it. And a certificate is automatically emailed to them for these trainings. So that session is going to be completely free. Some information will be going out about it probably this weekend. And then for people who can't attend those live training sessions, we're going to record them and put them into our user area for our, I guess we call this our early February 2023 teleconference day. And it's going to be 6 hours total. One person's presenting for 2 hours. So that information will be coming out probably this weekend.
Yay, that's really exciting.
You're both invited to attend. It's free, which is, I'm empathetic. I am a recreation therapist. I know it's not a get rich field. So a person could really earn all their continuing education from my site for free by just going. We typically do at least 10 hours of free content. So, 5 years, 10 hours, that's 50 hours.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of email list that people could sign up for to know when these conferences or webinars are being released?
Yes. People can just go to my website, rectherapytoday.com, and there's a tab that says free courses, and it pretty much invites people to join our newsletter, and it'll give them access to all of our free courses. It also includes different little special things to it by email for people, special resources that aren't really therapy. Like we create like holiday activity books that could be used for therapy, depending on a person's need. It could work on cognitive skills or fine motor skills or just socialization. So just a little extra thing we do.
That's awesome. So if you go to Rec Therapy today, sign up for the email list to learn about some of the free and also paid CEU options through the website. You can also get some resources that might be useful to you in your practice as a rec therapist. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So as far as the paid CEUs go, what topics do you cover? I'm sure like all sorts of topics, but can you speak on any of them?
Most of my courses are behavioral health focused. I work at a psychiatric facility. I have a lot of training in that area. I'll share that I have 2 master's degrees, one in rec therapy from Indiana University, and then also have a Master of Education in Mental Health Counseling through a school called Lindsey Wilson College. It's in Kentucky. So based on my experience, that's what I feel confident teaching. Of course, for other areas, we have speakers, who specialize in areas that they're familiar in, whether it be geriatrics, pediatrics, veterans, different things like that.
You could find a CEU on any topic at your website, probably.
But there's a lot of topics. I'm sure there's some that people are looking for that we don't have. And
then you can go to those other resources.
yeah, that's what I'd really recommend a person to do is, whatever their training, whatever their work area is, find training that meets their needs. A person could just earn CEUs to just mark it off and say, yeah, I've completed my CEUs for the 5-year period. A person could also really focus, whether it's on like aquatics or different things that would be beneficial for their population. That's really the best approach, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this information with us and with other recreation therapists out there. I know when you go to NCTRC's website, it's straightforward once you start going in, but I know that the ideas of, I like just sometimes just having in my head a to-do list of, oh no, I have to do CEUs, it can feel a little daunting. So it's kind of nice to break it down and be like, it's okay, guys, we got this. There's options for you that are easy to find, easy to get. It's getting audited is not the end of the world. It might make your blood pressure go up for a second, but then you just turn in the certificates. It's all okay. You're in this field, you know this stuff. And this is just giving you, like, reiterating things you know or updating your information. So hopefully this will alleviate some stress, is what we're kind of hoping, that this episode will alleviate some stress that people might be feeling around the recertification process.
Especially for those newer CTRS who have not been through the recertification process. I'm sure that's, it's new and challenging. So I hope this helps them. Again, contact NCTRC. They're very helpful. They're not trying to cause people to have a difficult time. They're going to tell you what you need. And my best advice is just being honest and open with NCTRC if you have anything going on.
Yeah. And again, if you guys are looking for any of these resources that we've recommended, you can go to our website, realtalkrecreationtherapy.com, and it will be in our show notes. So yeah, thank you so much, Danny. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge and expertise really with us.
Well, thanks again for having me. I appreciate your show. I'll definitely put it on my blog at Rec Therapy today to tell people about your podcast so more people can come over and follow it.
Perfect.
Thank
Great.
you. Appreciate that. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. All right. Well, as always, thank you again for joining us for this episode of Real Talk Recreation Therapy. We hope that you found lots of helpful information for your practice as recreational therapists. If you're looking for some of the resources that we mentioned, you can go to our website, www.realtalkrecreationtherapy.com. We hope you'll join us for the next episode. Bye!